Hey everybody, What's It Fox Gaming here. So what I've done today is put together a build ready for TU11. Now for the most part I was actually inspired to make this build from a lot of my subscribers telling me to use clutch on a lot of my builds. And the last time I tested clutch it was broken. I think it was either just before TU9 or just after. And I was like, why does everyone use clutch? It's really bad. But I can confirm, and I probably sounded like I'm 6 months behind everybody else here, but it 100% has been fixed. I don't remember reading this in any patch notes, so my guess is they fixed it at the same time they did True Patriot. True Patriot, excuse me. For those of you that don't remember, or just didn't know, True Patriot, the white flag part, the bit that heals you every second when you're shooting into an enemy, didn't work for your teammates, and they silently patched that. I feel like around about TU10 maybe, and that now works perfectly for all of your teammates. So clutch is basically the same. What used to happen is the bottom half of this talent just didn't work, or if it did, it only worked when you were within the 20%, the top half. Now it works regardless of what your health is. So at any part of your armor, whether you've only got 2% missing, if you get a kill, it's going to continually heal you up to 10 seconds. So let me quickly explain the talent and why I think this build is very appropriate for TU11 for like a solo AR build, and then I'll sort of finish the mission that I've been testing this build out in. And I will say now, it's awesome. It's great fun to play, and with the updates they're making for TU11, this is going to get a lot stronger without making any changes whatsoever. So perfect clutch. If you are below 20% armor, critical hits repair 2.5% missing armor. The second part that never used to work is kills allow you to repair up to 100% armor for 4 to 10 seconds based on the number of core attributes. So that's basically how many reds you have will be from 10 seconds right down to 4 if you've got 0 reds. I'm of course at 6 reds, so it's the full 10 seconds. So so basically the top half, the first part of this 2 paragraphs, is you don't need a kill for it to be active. You just need to be within 20% of your armor, so low health essentially, and it just automatically heals you. The second half required the kill, but it used to be that if you got the kill outside of that 20%, so let's just say you're at 30% armor, it didn't work. It would not heal you at all. It now does at any stage, as I was saying before, so it's phenomenal. It means you can tank so much damage, particularly when used in conjunction with a shield, whilst having a super high DPS build. I don't even have Fox's Prayer on this build. I don't have contractors. I've just gone fully into critical hit chance and damage. And my stats, as you can see, are 59 point. It's hard to see with that. Is that a photocopier? It is a photocopier. 59% critical hit chance and we'll just say 189 crit damage with nearly 100% headshot damage. So my stats are pretty high on this build. I've got a backpack talent that isn't giving me damage. I don't have Fox's Prayer on. And yeah, this build is destroying content. I've been testing this in control points and missions, and it's just ridiculous. So the reason I think this is good for TU11 is Obliterate, which is the chest talent that I've decided to go for on this build, is getting a nice buff. As it stands, it is outperformed by Spotter because Spotter is active immediately, doesn't need to be ramped up via stacks like Obliterate, and it's multiplicative versus additive. Of course, multiplicative is better because it's calculated at the end of the equation, which means it takes in all of your other DPS buffs at the time and just slaps that 15% on the end. Obliterate is getting buffed to 25% additional damage to 25 stacks, but it's still going to be within 5 seconds. So this is amazing. You're building 5 stacks per second, or at least you can do. Excuse me, no, it lasts for 5 seconds. I got that wrong. So yeah, every crit that you get gives you a 1% stack up to 25 total stacks, and you can just keep topping that up with more crits. So Obliterate is fantastic. It works really well with clutch because both of these rely on you getting crits. What you want to consider is to use a high RPM weapon that can crit easily. My top 2 choices are the FAMAS, specifically the Burnout, because that has a really nice talent, and the Chameleon. But you could use a Chatterbox, any SMG is your secondary. You could use a Police M4, or the named version, the Pyro, because that's an 850, the Carbine being a 790. You've got a lot of choice. Just make sure it's at least sort of 790 RPM or higher, because ultimately both of our talents need us to be critting quite quickly in order to be viable. The rest of the build is 3 pieces of Providence, so we get headshot damage, crit chance and crit damage, which all play very well into an AR build. And you can see you basically want to get every piece rolled similar to this mask. Now yes, I appreciate my watch level is very high and my gear rolls are typically very good as well. Don't worry if you can't achieve this kind of gear drops and your watch level isn't that high. Just aim to fill up your critical hit chance to the 60% cap first, and everything else put into crit damage. But ideally, yeah, you want all of your pieces looking as close to these 3 rolls as possible. High weapon damage, high crit chance. Unfortunately, my chest piece came with headshot damage instead of crit chance, so it meant that I couldn't afford to run Fox's Prayer, because of course Fox's Prayer can only have 1 minor attribute, and mine is crit damage, so that's why I had to negate them. But that's not the end of the world. You don't need Fox's Prayer anymore. Yes, they are still best in slot, and they will always be more damage than a different variant, but if you take too much of a hit on your crit chance and damage, which I did, I actually tested this out with the Fox's Prayer version, and it was less damage than what I have in front of me, because these pieces were just better rolled. As you can see, most of these are very close to full. So, you know, it's not always the end of the world if you can't get Foxes or Contractors in there. But yeah, it's still a really nice chest piece. And again, this is our second piece of Provi. And then our third piece is the gloves, which are also rolled very similarly to chance and damage. Instead of the Fox's Prayer, I opted for a Fenris piece here, because again, the roll was just too good not to use. And of course, 10% AR damage is very good for the weapons that we're using. And then the final piece is Grupo Sombra, just for the extra critical hit damage. And essentially, that combination is how I was able to achieve those stats. So I'm more than happy with that. What I would say is, if you do want to get Foxes in there, if your other stuff is well rolled, and you're happy to take a bit of a hit on critical hit damage by maybe swapping some mods around, do so. I'd say there's only really one of these 6 pieces that I would swap, and that's the Grupo. I would go as far as to say that the Devil's Due, which if you don't know is a DZ exclusive, quite easy to farm for though, I get tons of these things. That's of course a must. I would say you definitely want the 3 pieces of Providence, and you want the Fenris if it's an AR version, so that leaves you with the 6th piece that you can float around. So for example, if you had a Fenris here, that would free up your ability to have Foxes here. So that will probably be the best in slot if you can get everything well rolled, but don't worry if you can't. For my skills, I'm using the shield, because we're able to heal so frequently now. I can just run 3 missions, and the shield just helps keep me alive whilst I'm building up my stacks for Obliterate and Clutch. And a res hive, because, you know, I'm a pretty average player, I do die quite frequently, and this just helps that embarrassment just a little bit, so that's always a good skill. But use whatever skills you want. I do like the shield for this build, because you can really run 3 missions, and without it you might just take a bit too much damage, but by all means use what you want. The reason that I've opted for the burnout is it is, technically speaking, one of the highest DPS ARs in the game, as what the 40% weapon handling does when you reload from empty with this perfect talent is directly equate to 40% faster reload speed, and the less downtime you have, the more DPS you will output. It also gives us 40% stability and accuracy, which are 2 areas that the FAMAS struggles with. It's not great for ranged shots, because it does kick like a mule, and you'll probably notice when you watch the rest of this mission, the gameplay, that I am struggling to deal with the recoil a little bit compared to something like an FAL or a carbine. But that talent just helps with that. If you prefer just using Sync or Optimist is really good because it's a high rate of fire option, or just go with a Chameleon. This thing absolutely shreds on this build when you get those stacks up, so if you've got a Chameleon, try this out. It's quite close range though, which is why I didn't like it as much, so I'm going to stick with the FAMAS for the most part of this gameplay, but the Chameleon is great as well. Gunner is fantastic because it gives us a lot of ammo regen for our very ammo thirsty weapons. It gives us 10% armor on kill and the 10% weapon handling as well, so lots of synergy with this build. So if you want to screenshot that, by all means do so. What we'll then do is continue on with the mission. I'm in the middle of DCD, just testing this build out, so I've actually started it just before the boss fight. We'll go into that now, and I'll show you how bad I am at the game. And also how well the build performs, that's equally as important. There we go, first thing I do wrong is run into a door.
Thanks for getting me that data to play with.
I really shouldn't have a YouTube channel.
Suggest an egress through the courtyard.
That's weird. That actually took me over to that, even though I was locked onto the door.
Be careful.
So hopefully I'll get to demonstrate the perfect gun empty talent. I'll probably just sort of overfire my weapon a little bit to, you know, empty the mag and then get that talent up. I like the burnout. I think it's a great weapon, but if it's not for you, just all you've got to focus on is a high rate of fire weapon with high crit chance. That's the only thing that's important. I'm sort of fighting. You see that kicking up and down there? If we get that first reload, look at it now. No problem at all. And that directly equates to more DPS because you're missing less of your shots. Where is that guy? And you can just use it at range more reliably. Yeah, you don't need Fox's Prayer on this build, honestly. It absolutely rips through anything. Oh, I'm reload again. Ah, you just got into cover. So you see, even with my terrible accuracy, I'm actually still landing a lot of my shots just because of the recoil of this weapon is so massively improved. Wow, she actually hit me with a shotgun from that range and doing that much damage. That is crazy. Never mind, because I can heal.
Serious trauma detected.
He says. A bit more health from Clutch and Gunner. I'm sorry, but how could you be killed with a shotgun from that range? I thought they nerfed that. That is ridiculous. That's why I was so confident to poke my head out there, because I was like, well, she's obviously not going to kill me with it, but turns out I was wrong. $500k crits there, or 374. Yeah, no, you don't need Fox's Prayer on this build if you can't afford to squeeze it in. Don't feel like you need to. I know I'm a big advocate of it, and rightly so. With a well-optimised build, it is definitely best in slot. But is it a necessity? Absolutely not. There we go. So, yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts on the build. Apologies if I spent too much time talking and not enough time shooting there. I just wanted to explain why. Mostly it was to thank my followers for suggesting Clutch. A lot of you did so, and I couldn't understand why, but after testing it, it has indeed been fixed. It performs amazingly. You probably saw my health just constantly flying up there, whether I was over or under 20%. It just works now, and this build is going to become super strong when they buff Obliterate in TU11 as of actually next week. So, yeah. Let me know what you think to the weapon choices that I made, if you feel that you would change some of these pieces around, the skills. I'm curious to hear your own versions of this build. I will respond to as many of you as possible. And until that moment, I will see you all in the next video. Peace.